myself echoing. It was like, there was something else going on.
No echo this end.
God, I hope Henry doesn't turn up this week. I've totally completely ignored all his emails this week, right? And if he knew I was ignoring the stuff that he was sending me,
it's been noted.
All right, you're there, are you? All right, I've just read all your emails, and we won't be using any tonight.
So your ticket to Cyprus is off then?
Oh, don't even go there, mate. You didn't come back on the plane with my parents, did you?
No, I was going to send you to that archaeological site.
Right, I've got the prehistoric burial site. Hang on a minute, you didn't send me anything about an archaeological site in Cyprus?
Yep.
Did you?
On Thursday.
Oh, right. Thursday, top of the world, just on Thursday. I gotta have to look in my junk box.
Well, I've just rung Pat.
For God's sake.
She might be running to the phone, and I've switched it off.
What? What are you?
Well, I just thought I didn't want to.
Right, so she's ended up in A&E because you've just she tripped over and banged her head.
Well, I'm hoping she'll see the ring message and know what I want. She sometimes has her children.
And sometimes I realise that I've got mental health problems, and I know why.
I know.
Right.
I just recognise someone. I recognise someone in you.
What, Elvis? Right. William, any news from you this week, lover?
No, I've been on the operating table, so I've been confined to quarters a lot.
Or in other words, you can't see bollocks.
Well, at the moment, I can see something, but not entirely clear.
So in other words...
And I can't read very well, so which means I haven't been reading things. But there must be something going on, surely. There always is.
Okay.
I've got a bit of news.
Go on then. Go on.
Oh, go and give it to us, Anne. Give it to us.
Oh, it's just nothing really. But I was looking online. No, I wasn't. Yes, I was. I was looking for somewhere nice to move. A house to buy.
I wish you bloody would.
And I was looking around Newport because that's my hometown.
Yeah.
But I actually found Lord Tredegar's house is it's a stable. It is, but
you're going to buy that.
It's on Forge Lane, and it's been lovely done up. It's one of those square houses, like Georgian style, or probably Victorian, but Georgian with the round windows.
And what is your point?
It's only 295,000.
Oh, well, go and buy it then.
Well, that's one thing, and then further down the road in Machen, which is a highly desirable place.
Yeah.
There is a derelict chapel.
Yeah.
For sale.
Yeah.
£9,000.
Well, Anne, right? Why didn't you buy the chapel, right? Use all the money you've got doing the chapel up, right, and then work out you need planning permission on it. You can't live there. Job done.
Well. No, you do that first. Find out the planning permission first. But anyone want a nice little cottage to do up in Machen? It's stone built.
Yeah.
And it looks very unusual.
Hang on, I said what? 200 grand?
No, it's 9,000.
You said the chapel, Anne. I am so confused. I need.
Look. It's all historic. It's all on Lord Tredegar's land.
And I need some serious drugs. I really do.
Near Basilick.
Yeah.
Near Basilick. And I thought, it's history.
Yeah.
I'm telling you about it.
Yeah. No, we appreciate this.
Historic houses.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you, Anne. That'll do.
Anne.
We'll need some paracetamol.
Oh, dear.
But oh my God, Yeah, I've been looking through my phone trying to find that thing about the bloody about the Cyprus thing. I can't find it. Yeah, you're gonna have to send it to me again.
Oh,
Did you send it via WhatsApp?
no, email.
It's not there.
You know those people in Langley, Virginia?
Yeah,
They've been purging your email.
and nothing wrong with a bit of a purge.
Yeah, but what they're doing with it is another thing.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Say no more. Oh my God! Please, Henry, have you got right? Send that out back over to me, Henry. I've had a look. I can't find it. Henry, send it back. Any other news, Henry?
Yeah, I just sent you something else to really raise your blood pressure.
You sent that one on about the bloody National Museum, right? And as far as I'm concerned, no, they haven't made the decision. Oh, I've got something to tell you, right? I got something to tell you. I can't be specific, but I was on a job on Friday and Saturday, right? And one of the people there, right, I recognized. So I went up to her and I said, "Oh, are you Sian Rees?" And she said, "No, I'm the new replacement head, chief executive for CADU." And I thought, oh my God.
Did you tell her who you were?
She said, "I just had a copy of Illicit Pillar where you were slightly critical about CADU, right?" And she said, this is her exact words. She said, some people say good things about you in CADU, right? And most of them say bad things. And I'm thinking, who are the people saying good things about me? I really want to know.
Who is that one person? Who is it?
No, plural. There's more than one.
Two.
Yes. And CADU has 250 employees, so I got 2 people who like me.
Well done.
And guess what, Bill? I've organised a meeting to try and sort out our differences.
It'd be a long meeting.
Yeah, I tell you about it, yeah.
You'll be holding it in separate rooms.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. She's quite a nice woman, actually. The thing is, the last piece I did on CADU was actually in the edition before, and then in this one, it was like the chief executive gets 250 grand a year for CADU, right? Well, I don't think she gets that much. That's why they got rid of him.
They don't get as much as National Trust, no.
What? So National Trust people who are chief executives get over £250,000? Bloody hell, Anne. Right.
Oh, I don't know.
Anne, just leave it there. Right.
All
Richard, anything you want to say? Richard, I just want some hope from you. Just some, just some hope, please.
Well, I was looking at those maps as well. You asked me to have a look at.
Oh, remind me what the maps were about again.
Roman remains. Roman remains in Whitchurch.
All right, yeah, you've got to send me an email about that.
All right.
Yeah, go on.
So they're marked on the 1878 map and the 1888 map. They're not marked.
Oh, I suppose
so.
Anne, shut up.
They've mysteriously disappeared.
Right, Richard. Anne, just please.
I've turned myself off.
No, it's entertaining. Yes. We're loving it. That's the only reason why Henry signs up every week, right? So, Richard, can you write me a little bit of blurb and just basically tell me that, and I will use it. All right.
All right. I'll see what I can dig out there.
So, in other words, you're writing the following: there was stuff on the 1877 map, and there was bog all on all the other maps. That's fine.
No, it's gone.
It's gone.
Someone dug it up in their garden.
That's fascinating.
It's going in the next magazine.
I mean, it's a possibility because they were there, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. Oh, thank God for this, please. Pat.
Yes, I'm here.
Apparently, Anne was apologising earlier on because she phoned you up and you fell over, banged your head, and it's her fault.
Just about. I got on the stair lift and it caught my knee on the handrail. I thought I was going to have my whole leg. Oh, God. So if I look in shock, I'm in shock. So, yeah.
If you ever need any help with your stair lift, I've got a good mate who repairs them out all the time.
Good.
So let me know, right? So Anne's been up to her usual shenanigans, telling us all about 2 houses she wants to buy in Machen and Newport. And she was trying to convince us to club together and buy a chapel for $9,000.
A
That was it,
chapel?
really. So any news from you? No? All right then. By the way, this citronella fly spray, right? Oh my God, I've been spraying it, and I unfortunately earlier on, I was spraying the citronella fly spray, right, and it was going in my coffee, and it didn't half taste a bit weird.
God, poison yourself.
No, so right, it's citronella, isn't it? I don't know. Right. Anyway, what we're going to do today, we're not going to talk about the gay First Minister of Ireland that Anne raised earlier on. So we're not going to do that. Richard wanted to, but I didn't want to do it because it might upset Henry. So tonight we're going to be doing the Irish bridge building company in the Roman period. We're doing that. We're also doing
I've just sent you a
tin
picture
mining
on
in
an Irish
Cornwall.
bridge.
What?
I've just sent you a picture on an Irish stone bridge.
Oh, well, I can't use it this week, can I? But I'm going to be using it next week. So there we go. So we're also going to be looking at the possibility that there was very... What? What the hell?
What happened?
Where'd she go?
Who?
Anne!
Oh, well, her computer might broke down.
Oh, bloody hell, Owen's just turned up now. Oh, my God. Bill, we may as well just give up.
I suggest you start, Tom. Right, and what happens after that happens?
Bill, I'm trying to start, right? I've been trying to start for the past 20 minutes, right? Anne's just disappeared because did I say something that upset Anne?
Don't know.
Oh, God.
She'll come back.
Anyway.
I Carl.
Yeah, she probably will.
I all
right, Del. How's it going, Del?
flipping hot.
It is, isn't it? I hope you haven't got your trousers on.
I've covered up because I've got no woad.
Yeah, cool. It's a dog
Flipping too hot to wear nothing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it is.
Thing is, the part of the house I'm in faces the southwest. So we get the full sun, and it's absolutely flipping like sitting in a greenhouse.
Well, Bill's going to come over and help you next week.
Is he?
We're going to go down. So to have one.
Sorry about last week. My mate came to cheer me up.
Okay, then. Tell us all about your mate, all the stories you told. No. Carl, start, please.
No, I can imagine what Carl told you.
I'm losing it. Start, Carl.
No, he took me for a drive.
No, go on then.
No, I will tell you. It was up to Blind Thea in the Beacons.
There we are.
Where that big standing stone is.
Oh, I'm going to hang myself.
And there's a nice bit of a brook stream thing.
Oh, I know the one. Yeah.
Yeah, it was so hot, we decided to...
Take off and jump in, yeah.
Jump in.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that at all. Just kidding.
No. Tell you what, we've been 2 old men together because we're both in our 60s.
Oh.
Being back to lads.
Oh, dear.
But I did have a good look at the stone. And as Carl says, if you pee on it, it'll show the graphics.
Did you pee on the stone?
Yes.
That's illegal.
No, it's not.
It is.
It shows up the graphics. But I couldn't see any. Because my friend was absolutely on his back laughing. Saying, why are you doing that? I said, it's an archaeological thing. You have to pee on a stone.
Bill,
Yes.
if you ever do this,
please.
Bill, if you ever do this again, I'm gonna bloody strangle you.
I'm on my knees now, begging. Start.
Are
Oh,
you seeing?
sorry, I'm late. Sorry, I'm late. I've taken the dog out because it's too warm in the
Don't tell us
afternoon.
about a dog. No, we
She's
don't
a
wanna know.
border collie,
No,
and
we don't want to know.
I take her very early or fairly late.
I am going to hang myself. I am. I'm
Is this
losing the
going to
will.
finish by Thursday morning?
Oh.
Guys,
I'll carry on,
Yeah.
please. Thank you.
yeah,
Meanwhile, back in Ireland.
Bill, don't, Bill,
Everything I miss
Bill. If you say any more, right, I'm just gonna lose the plot. Right? Are you seeing archaeology community on the screen?
Yes.
Unfortunately, yes.
Why the hell didn't you tell me that like 3 minutes ago? I could have started, you stupid.
I can see it.
Good. Right, okay, fine. Let's just crack on.
That one in the middle looks like the stone I peed on.
I hope you didn't pee on this skeleton.
Oh, no, I wouldn't do that. Got respect.
I showed you this last week. This is going in a new book anyway, so there we go. I've got to show you that. Right, Roman Britain. Archaeology with karl-james Langford and barking dogs. Right.
No,
So,
I'm going to switch the sound off because Lily's decided to join in and bark.
Bill's going to miss talking to you.
That's a good idea. Right, carry on.
Right, okay. It's all good. Everything's fine. There's nothing wrong. Okay. So we're going to be looking at another subject tonight as well. And we're going to be looking at St. Albans, Verulamium. However, one thing that I wanted to do was to look at something that's relatively new, being relatively new on the ballpark. So it goes Cotswolds archaeology and look at the size of those jugs. Those bits of pottery are absolutely huge. And just thinking about finding this on a Roman villa site. So they're excavating a community dig in Devon. So I wanted to share this with you today. And when we think about amphora, these are particularly large amphora, not the small, slender ones, but the bulbous, thin-necked ones. This is what these are. So what we've got, they belong to a type of pottery known as Dressel 20. And they possibly date from the 200s and from a valley in Spain that actually produced olives. So when you think about artifacts, you've got the containers, and they obviously can help you identify the types of liquids that these people would have been consuming, right, on their food or drink and so on. And I thought it was really interesting that we got a little bit of a link with Colchester and this sort of spoon, a bit of spoon evidence, and a beautiful spoon, a mandolin-shaped spoon, bit of a copper alloy there as well, silver plate. Obviously, examples from Camel and Junum. This is a site in Devon, obviously a villa, an interesting type of bone pin. Now, we were talking about pins last night, actually, and if we go back to the description, it basically says exquisite bone pin, decorated end, likely hand carved, possibly for securing hair, clothing, or possibly bags. And last night I basically mentioned about wigs. Basically, we when we were in Colchester that time and we were field walking, we actually found a clay wig pin, a Roman clay wig pin, which has been identified. So this is similar type of thing you could find on excavations and archaeology, and basically a coin as well from roughly around 324 AD. So archaeologists do occasionally find coins. So I thought I'd share that with you as a little bit of archaeology. But look at the size of that amphora, absolutely massive pieces. And I got to be honest with you, I just want to tell you a bit about the context of those big pieces of amphora. if you find big pieces of amphora like that, it means the ground at that level and very, very much above that as well hasn't been disturbed for a very, very long time. So that's an indication that this villa site in Devon was just abandoned. Weeds grew there, nothing happened for generations, just left over to farmland and nothing else. So this is what that tells us with this wonderful terracotta pottery from Spain. And to be honest with you, when I was working in Spain, place near Madrid, we were actually at a place that actually was a pottery kiln, which was absolutely amazing. But no, it didn't produce amphora. I thought I'd share that with you as a little bit of a start. Now, basically, right, I honed the skill, Bill, right? You weren't here last week, Bill. Bill, have you ever wondered, Bill, when people do reconstructions of bridges, right, that it's almost as if you can't get a boat under the bridge, right? And you're thinking, well, there's boats on the other side, and you just really try to wonder why that is. So here we go. Nice little bit of an illustration. If I can do it. An Irishman builds a bridge. And the problem is with a bridge, he builds it so low, and he comes up with the idea that the best thing to do to get a boat from the one side to the other side is actually put the bridge over it. You see, that's Murphy, the Irish bridge builder. And then you've got the other idea, right? That the next Irishman builds another bridge, and basically every time that a boat needs to pass, they demolish the bridge and they rebuild it. So there we go. And then the other Irishman, Murphy, says, finally, Irishman builds a bridge so high that no one ever uses it. And that's actually future proof that Ireland actually had giants. I thought I'd share that with you guys, but the serious nature of this is when you see lots of reconstructions, what you do find is that boats themselves, it's almost as if they do these reconstructions and you're trying to work out how did they get from one side to the next. And occasionally archaeologists like me, we might turn around and say, actually, they stopped at this point and then they
collapsible mast.
Collapsible mast. But usually, Del, right, is you do see these bridges, right, that you can't even, the width is too narrow when they do the reconstructions, right? And the problem is when you've got a collapsible mast, Del, right, is if you got the wind, you're going to directly smash into the bridge. So anyway, all these points, but whenever you do see reconstructions, always ask the question, how practical are the reconstructions? And we do have quite a few reconstructions tonight, but no bridges. So I thought I'd share that with you. Now, one of the things that I was sat down thinking about the other day, right? And I don't know where Anne is. I'm a bit worried because she's just disappeared. So I'm just going to send Anne a message, right? And I'm just going to send her a message saying, where are you? If you don't mind, guys. Right. So I had a question the other day, and it was going around my head for a little bit. And I actually started thinking, well, are places like Herculaneum and Pompeii the only places, right, that have actually got well-preserved cities like Pompeii and Herculaneum? Are these the only ones on the planet that have actually been preserved by volcanic ashes, right, and so on? And I just started asking that question. I thought, well, Vesuvius can't have been the only eruption in history to actually cover a town or a city on the planet. And I actually come up with one example that there's probably more. So anyway, back to this little image. So 75% of Herculaneum is still buried under a modern city, and the people living above it are walking over something perfectly preserved underneath their feet. And looking at this reconstruction is absolutely brilliant, absolutely gorgeous. But when we think about lost cities, I found this one. This is actually in San Salvador. It's on the Yucatan, well, basically south of the Yucatan Peninsula, south of Mexico, and so on, and north of South America. So anyway, the point is, this is a site known as Joya de Keren, and the interesting thing about Joya de Keren is that they use the same techniques as they've used at Pompeii, for example. And what I mean by that, so the village itself is a Mayan village. It dates back to 1,400 years ago, AD 600. It's a site that was covered by ashes up to 8 meters. Really, really interesting site. And the one thing about it, it's very much smaller than anything like Pompeii, Aplontus, or whatever, Herculaneum. You probably had a population of about 200 people, but nevertheless, the preservation of the archaeology here is sort of the same as anything that we might find in Herculaneum, for example. So what we've got, a little bit of text here, abandonment of Gioia de Caron, and it's basically saying, 8-10 meters of ash and ashfall, and they're referring to it as a town, but obviously 200 people, it is a town, big village. So the one thing that they did do is the use of plaster casting by archaeologists. So in other words, they used the plaster casting to fill voids, and in the voids they worked out that there were certain fruiting plants that they could actually identify via the plaster casting. So basically what happens is the pyroclastic debris, the ash and so on, creates casts around anything. It bakes everything, and then there's a void. Archaeologists come across these voids later on, and they pour plaster in them. Or what we're doing now is perspex. And then what you've got is the abundance, obviously the abundance of beans in storage, evidence of maize, and so on. So the evidence that they found that Gioia de Caron has its counterparts in Europe. And what we've got, hang on, not yet. What we do have is buildings that are preserved like this, and you're thinking, wow, that's absolutely brilliant. And obviously the roofs would have collapsed with all the weight of the 8 to 10 meters of ash on top, but really, really well preserved archaeology, really, really well preserved other organic stuff and pottery and so on. So I thought I'd actually share that with you as a counterpart example of something like Pompeii and Herculaneum. And I really believe that if I really searched, and if I had a full set of National Geographics in front of me, I would probably find other examples of places that have been sealed under pyroclastic flows, ash and so on, associated with volcanoes. And one case in point, I started to think about Mount St. Helens that went up in 1983. There was a really interesting event, particularly when I was at school. And so when Mount St. Helens went up, you get the idea that there might actually be layer upon layer upon layer of settlements associated with the native peoples of that area associated with Mount St. Helens. So, these types of things out there. So it sort of got me thinking. Anyway, back to the Roman world. So I wanted to look at the story a little bit of the likes of St. Albans, Berylanium. And I don't know. It's almost as if I got two very different groups, one on the Tuesday and one on the Wednesday. And Anne's just replied, she is trying to connect her computer. Right? What the hell? It's Anne, guys, Anne. But I wanted to do St. Albans Verulamium tonight because when we do Colchester, when we do Londinium, we need to be able to do St. Albans. And Bill, one of the big questions came up last night, which I raised. And the big question is why is it that one of the biggest cities in sort of one of the biggest towns in Britain before AD 43, and it became one of the biggest towns in Britain after AD 43, Caliver Atropatum Silchester. Why is it Caliver Atropatum Silchester wasn't burnt to the ground like St. Albans, Londinium, Colchester, Camaldunum, right? Why was it that Caliver Atropatum, and when you think about it, this really opens up questions in your mind, right? So this is why we haven't done Boudica yet in Camaldunum, St. Albans, and Londinium yet in the archaeological evidence. It really opens your minds to why Caliver Atropatum should have been the place that Boudica should have gone to, right? It should have been the place that should have been destroyed, wiped out altogether, but it wasn't even affected by this uprising, right? So it then opens up other questions. It opens up the first question, yeah? When people talk about the Boudican rebellion of AD 60, or was it AD 61, historians always talk about the fact that the Boudica was in breathing of sort of taking back Britain from the Romans, right? But if that's the case, why is it places like Chichester, Silchester, Canterbury,
Lily.
Winchester, right? Why is it all these places, right, were not affected by the Boudiccan rebellion, right? And then it takes you off into another direction, right? when we look at what the historians tell us about St. Albans, London, and Colchester, they always say, "Oh, Boudica hit Colchester first. Then somewhere along the way, you've got Chelmsford and some other localities, and then she headed towards London, and then she's headed towards St. Albans, and then she sort of headed towards sort of Leicester, was defeated, and then her army moved out, right?" And you're starting to think, well, how maybe she hit St. Albans first. Maybe maybe Colchester went up in flames naturally because there's not many bodies there. Is the real history about Boudica true? And I would say it's not true, right? There's something really, really missing in the archaeology. And good to have you back, Anne. I did actually try and send you a text, but I couldn't get through. So I've got this in front of us. It's really, really good. My agent, who's got extra time on her hands these days sometimes, actually puts this stuff together for me, and it's absolutely brilliant. So the first part of the story. Oh, let's do the first part of the story with Vermalion. Well, Vermalion, right, to Vermalion. So the name Vermalion is an original native name that became Vermalion, St. Albans. So the birthplace of Roman St. Albans. So when you think about Vermalion, this is the place of the Catalani people. So some really interesting stuff tonight. So don't have as many illustrations tonight, which is fine because we can focus on these, which is great. So let's go back to where I'm going to be, right? And right, here we go. And my St. Albans notes. Oh, and Bill. Bill, can I impress you?
Of course.
I haven't got you now.
I'm going to impress Bill, right?
Lily, downstairs.
Somebody let me look at a bronze object the other day.
No,
right?
go noodle. Take a noodle.
Al, can you do your mic, please?
Yeah,
do your mic.
Sorry, the dog's disturbing me.
Just do your mic. It's fine. Thank you. Right. Bill, you'd be really impressed. Somebody gave me a little bronze object the other day to look at, right? And I said, that is a Benin bronze, right? And it turned out to be a real Benin bronze, right? And I was really impressed with myself. I identified it straight away because I learned all that stuff at Leicester University. So there we go. I don't even know why I mentioned that, but I mentioned that because I just wanted to do a bit of time whilst Del sorted out his dog. So Vermalion to Vermalion. So the one thing that we've got about this is that this place was really hip. It was really going. It was the place to be. It had access to the River Ver, as in Vermalion, the River Ver. It had access to a river. Vermalion is the place of legend, right? Is the place of legend. It's the place of Casavellaunus. It's the place of the Catalani people. It's the place of Tascavanus, the person who made coins. The person of Conobalinus, was mentioned by Shakespeare. The place that is referred to by Julius Caesar. Maybe Julius Caesar got this far, right? But Vermalion itself was a hip, thriving town, stroke, if you could call it city, an oppidum, heading all the way up to AD 43. It's an important river crossing. It's an important locality, right? So there it is, and we're thinking, right. And then eventually, Vermalion become the place of where the Watling Street crossed. Now, there's more questions than answers tonight, and we'll find out more about that when we do the tin as well. So when we think about this, when we get into this, right, we start to think about Vermalion. The Romans went to Vermalion, and then they established a city like this. And the one thing that we can obviously think is that if we put 4 cities into the bag, let's go back to the chart again. If we put 4 cities into the bag, Colchester, Camulodunum, St Albans, Verulamium, London, Londinio, Silchester, Caliver Atrebatum. St Albans, there was already something there before AD 43. There was definitely already something at Camulodunum before AD 43. Caliver Atrebatum, Silchester, definitely a big city developing, but there was nothing at London, right? So the big question is, why, therefore, when there's established towns and cities, right, did the Romans not establish their city at St Albans, Silchester, and Colchester in longevity? Why did they need to found a new city at Londinium? Is it to do with water? No, it's probably not to do with water in regards to Camulodunum either. So Verulamium itself was probably a locality that quickly was subjugated by control, or maybe they just basically come to an agreement with the Romans. Right, okay, we'll just crack on and do things, and we'll maybe put a road across as well. And interesting, and maybe that sounds a bit vague, but it's not, because interestingly enough, right, this sort of blows your mind. This one little fact, this changes everything, right? Verulamium itself was granted a municipum status by AD 49, not AD 149, not AD 249, by AD 49, an honor given to loyal communities, making Verulamium one of the earliest self-governing towns in Roman Britain. So in other words, hang on a minute, Carl. So hang on, what are you saying? So there's Roman era Britain, and there's bits of Britain that are controlled by local people, more or less. Then again, that's the story all over, right? That is the story all over. So if we think about this, and we think about this next image, early Roman Verulamium. So this is by AD 50. So when you think about something like this, you're thinking actually by this stage, right? Verulamium itself was a municipum, right? And if you think about municipums, we've done this before. We've basically talked about cities that remained in the Roman Empire, but were basically almost totally autonomous, right? Just a bit like this. So this is sort of self-governing status. So in other words, they decided whether there was going to be a road through it, obviously with a bit of a dig from the Romans, right? But this is a place that's starting to go places, right? And so we've got this idea of strip houses, strip foundations. So basically, strip foundations are quite simple: a ditch in the ground, a timber build up from there, easy, job done. You could build a whole city and a town, right? I've built a strip building once out of big chunks of timber in the ground, a frame, corrugated iron, job done. It's easy, right? You can do it in a few hours, right? If you can do strip buildings, same thing. Two massive timbers running parallel in the ground, build a structure, job done. That's what you've got. Now, when we think about all of this, when we try to ascertain the situation, and we try to bring all of this together, what we've got to think about is that when we think about from Verulamium to Verulamium, right? So what we got to do, beating modern day heart of Hertfordshire today, and when you go to Verulamium today, you don't see as much as the Roman archaeology as you would like to see, right? Because some of it is just hidden in plain sight. So if you type in Roman walls in Britain, the last place you'll actually come across with a Roman wall on the internet is Caliver Atrebatum. In fact, Caliver Atrebatum was some of the most complete Roman walls in Britain, right? And there's some really nice bits of wall around Verulamium as well. But so this fascinates me. All this really fascinates me, that when you actually start to look, you can actually find the Roman archaeology. But what's there before? You can't see what's there before. So that what's there before basically become what was there before AD 60. So when we think about it, before AD 43 and after AD 43, if we do that in the middle of the screen, the position of Caliver Atrebatum is not accidental, it's deliberate. It commands the River Via. It commands a crossing across the River Via. It's an ancient routeway where lots of routeways met. If you go to east to west, south to north, this is where you're going to go. It's a place itself that you can sort of get a sense of the history, right? Even today. But it's a sense of history when you move from an Iron Age culture into the Roman era after AD 43. It's not a primitive settlement. It's a place that's already got a name. It's a place with blacksmiths. And we know it's a place with blacksmiths. How? Because Caliva Verulamium itself actually produced coins. So as it produced coins, it's got blacksmiths. And in turn, it would have had pottery kilns that actually they produced their own pottery. So it was already urban by Iron Age standards. And when we think about the figures in history, Tascavanus, Cunobelinus, Roman writers considered this locality, the leaders of this locality, friendly towards the Roman world. And that is the point. So within a short period of time, that on the left become that on the right. When I say short period of time, when you think about it, 7 years, you're starting to take things down, putting a new building up. That's 1 year gone. You do a bit more, another year gone. It's not in a day, right? But it's over a few years. By AD 60, probably more like AD 60 rather than AD 50. It's looking like this. So we move. So one thing that we could say, we move from round houses to square houses. We moved from a timber palisaded locality, not needing any timber palisade, but we've got a river crossing in both instances. Grain storage, busy marketplaces, the place to be. So thinking about this illustration and thinking about where we are with this is a site that probably gave itself over to becoming part of the Roman world quite quickly, right? They wanted the Roman world because they felt themselves sort of part of it. If you think about Tascavanus and Cunobeline and all these other people, they were sort of somewhat signing in. So when you think about this, Verulamium is a massive key locality because it's got. So if you go back to this, so if you start putting the roads on, you've got to basically, to get to the north, you've got to go via St Albans from London. To get from east to west, you've got to go from via St Albans. If you can't go directly north from Colchester, because it's all boggy, marshy ground, so you've got to go via St Albans. You could basically have another road from Silchester to Corinion, Cirencester, but Silchester to St Albans and Londinium actually works as well. So again, when we think about the point and the issues that we're trying to make, and we go back to this illustration. So when we think about this idea of municipum, right? Only a handful of towns, in lots of bits of the Roman world will actually be given this status. It's a reward for being sort of a pro place of Rome. It had a Roman style government. It had local magistrators. It had Roman laws, but Rome was saying, we trust you. We trust you to manage your own affairs, right? If you manage your own affairs, we're just going to basically leave you people away. So, there was another thing I was going to look at tonight was slavery. Slavery was mentioned last night. We actually come to it. So we've got 4 things. Forget about the Irish jokes. But anyway, there was Verulamium. We were talking about tin mining. We were looking at slavery as well. And this is the point. That idea, right? A municipum, right? You're basically allowed to do your own thing, follow Roman laws, do what everyone else is doing, keep yourselves to yourselves, don't break any laws, just sort of do this, right? And we'll leave you alone. These were local people, right? In a way, you could think that as sort of you're being enslaved to be like the Romans, if you want to be brash and say that. But one of the things is not changing. Is an important marketplace, is an important transition place. Temples themselves would have been before as they were after. The only probable difference is that maybe Roman surveyors come in to sort of redraw the landscape, to sort of make sure that rubbish disposal is organized, make sure that the town was rapidly looking like a Roman town. So when we think about sort of that sort of key question, right? The key question is we sort of go into this, right? when you look at this, is you could say what looks Roman, what still looks Iron Age, what still feels like it's an Iron Age landscape, right? Within this developing municipal pseudo-independent Roman Iron Age town. And you could basically think that maybe if you were a child in AD 43, it's AD 50, you would think that this is how Iron Age Britain always looked, because the changes were so slow and gradual, right? Over those 7 years, you might not notice any change, but the thing is massively different from over a period of time. But again, clothing probably remained the same. It's possibly likely that people still used coins, which was from a previous era. But then things become quite dramatic. Now, I think there's more than one of my people on a Tuesday that really agree with me on this, who have doubts about the story involving Boudica and the Boudican rebellion, right? And that all stems in with what we're sort of going to be doing this week and maybe looking at again, right? So this image here, and we've got one image that I'm going to show you that is absolutely bloody brilliant, right? So the Boudican destruction. Now, when you look at images like this, right, when a city's up in flames, you don't go back to you just leave it, right? Whether you've set light to it, or whether you actually have run away, or there's loads of different ways of looking at this, right? For example, when I set light to my parents' garage when I was a child and never admitted to it, right, I soon got out of there. I didn't go back in, right? So that's a little metaphor for this, right? When a town's burning, it burns, and then you move to something else. How much of the town was actually really destroyed, right? It's like asking, what was the destruction of Nagasaki and Hiroshima on the 6th and the 9th of August 1945, right? But you do look at Nagasaki and Hiroshima, even after the fireball, the buildings still stand, right? In all places that fires, not everything's burned. The impression that I've given from Camalodunum and maybe Londinium is that it was flattened, right? Is that right? And I think it's wrong, right? Maybe there were buildings that were still standing that could be reused. When you think of timber buildings burning, right? If the timbers are big enough, right, they're not going to completely combust. There's still going to be things still standing. And remember, between AD 50 and AD 60, some of the buildings were now in stone. So all this interesting stuff about fires and re-examining the history, right? What right have I got to question history? I've got every right, because we're here to question. So thinking again about this story and the catastrophe that was the burning down of the likes of Verulamium. So what we got two images to follow now, and they are absolutely, one is peach, right? That to me is not peach. This is peach, right? Or two images of the latest stuff that you'll see at Verulamium, and like this, right? So what is peach, right? That is peach. And you're thinking, right, did Verulamium actually look like that when the fireball went through, right? Or did it actually look like that, right? Or was it more like that? This is the question in archaeology. What we do in archaeology, we simplify it. We basically say it was all burnt down to the ground level, and that was it, right? Even in the Great Fire of London, that didn't happen in 1666. You still have stone buildings standing, right? Lots of the timber buildings went up. Not all the timber buildings in Verulamium, they wouldn't have all been timber buildings. Maybe this is a bit extreme. Let's go with what the captions say, for example. So archaeological evidence shows widespread burning across the city. But does that say that buildings were completely destroyed? Layers of ash, charcoal, collapsed timbers, mark this event through Verulamium. Many buildings were rebuilt in stone in the following decades, but there would have been buildings in stone at this stage anyway. And when we think about this, burnt timber and roof collapses there, ash on the streets, abandoned personal belongings, number 3, damaged street surfaces, ruined shops and buildings. But maybe the destruction wasn't as bad as maybe it wasn't as bad as this, for example, or maybe it was as bad as this. The answer is we're never going to know. But what we need to do is we need to look at less extreme. I don't think, right, I'm going to say it, right, the Boudicca Rebellion happened because we got archaeological evidence. I cannot doubt that, but I'm doubting the historians' view of this. But I don't think the Boudicca Rebellion was as bad as people say it was, right? They exaggerate it. And the big exaggerate, Bill, you're going to love this, Bill, disagree with me, Bill. The army of Boudicca was, Boudicca's army was over 100,000 strong, right? And they wandered through and destroyed these towns and cities over a spree of a few weeks, right? And they ended up facing the Roman army and they were wiped out, right? Well, I can tell you that it's very likely that the Boudicca Rebellion actually occurred in early September after the harvest, right? Because there's no way that these people would have left the harvest untended, right? So the individuals who would have joined Boudicca would have been people who were spare, right? Not everybody, right? People would have. The thing is, right, I know full well, right, if I leave my sheep unattended for more than a week, some of them will be dead, right? Secondly, most of them would be nicked, right? I can guarantee that. And it's that's a modern day. It's exactly the same back then. So there's so many exaggerations. There's so many things of the Boudiccan story that doesn't right. And it's likely that the revolt pitted out because people wanted to go home and get back to their families, right? Not that Boudicca's army was wiped out to a man and a woman, right? I don't believe that story, and there's going to be no evidence of that at all. But yes, the Boudiccan Rebellion did actually occur. Evidence everywhere of burnt timbers and collapsed buildings. Yes, Londinium, Camalodunum, but nothing in existence at the likes of Caliva Atrabatum. No layers of ash at Caliva Atrabatum, no breaking pottery, melted metal here. 1 or 2 skeletons, but not many, right? And I've got to recheck that fact. I'm not exactly sure. Not much in the way of human remains have actually been found at Verulamium at all, right? And it does actually start to make you wonder. And I would like to do, if I had all the time in the world, which I don't, right? But I'd like to do some research on how many Roman cities accidentally are recorded as going up in flames. Maybe that could be some research for you, Bill, right? Start looking at your books on the internet, find out how many Roman cities and towns were recorded as going up in flames by accident. Rome being one of them. Right, and I think that was
in Britain.
Well, no, let's do the Roman Empire, Anne. Let's do the Roman Empire, right? Let's do Anne. The problem is, right, you said in Britain, right?
Yeah.
The problem is, Anne, if you just go within Britain, you're left with the 3 cities that we've already said, right? And then those 3 cities, Anne, that we've already mentioned, they're linked in with the Boudiccan Rebellion, right? So, Anne, what we've done, Anne, we've lined up 3 ducks in a row, right? We've got a shotgun and we've killed all 3 of them, right? But the fact of the matter is, right, we've lined our ducks up in a row. If we hadn't lined up our ducks in a row, right, we might not be associating what happened at London and Verulamium and Camalodunum as the same event. Maybe one of them went up in flames naturally, right? One was destroyed by Boudicca, and one people had enough and set light to it and just went off, right? So what we're doing is we're assuming that all of this happened at the same time, right? Somebody mentioned something last night. I don't know who it was, right? I can't remember. They basically said something like the evidence for so and so is that this happened contemporaneously, right? It happened to be Woodhenge. They basically said Woodhenge is contemporaneous, the same time as Durrington Walls, as in the same time as Stonehenge. And I basically turned around and said, look, you've got 3 different sets of monuments, right? Meaning 3 different things. And when you say contemporary, you're talking about within the space of 1,000 years. Yeah. Well, that's not contemporary, is it? Right. And the thing is, Anne, when you're talking about maybe one of these went up in flames, right? Accidental, in AD 60, and the Boudicca rebellion actually happened in AD 61, right? What I'm not doing is denying the archaeological evidence. What I'm trying to do is saying that why is it this didn't happen to Khalifa Atrebatum, right? Khalifa Atrebatum would have been easy. It's an open field. They would have been in there and they would have set light to the thing like that, right? It would have been easy to do Khalifa Atrebatum, but they didn't. That's the big question. They didn't do it. They didn't do Khalifa Atrebatum, right? So looking about all of this, when you go to the history, right? Queen Boudica led the Iceni revolt. There were lots of other people involved as well. After destroying Camalodunum, Londinium, her army marched on to Verulamium, right? But not Khalifa Atrebatum. Again, it's that. So that history doesn't go well, right? It burned violently. So, but what we've got, back to what we got, we've got a probably year, Anne, right? But we've got no evidence for it. And Anne, can you guess what the probably is? When I do the list, right, you can work out the probably, right? So we know Verulamium was burnt down somewhere around AD 60. Archaeologists find burnt timbers, evidence of collapsed buildings, ash layers, charcoal, warped metals, warped glass. Sometimes entire streets can still be recognized beneath the destruction layer and beneath the later buildings. The town was devastated, but where's the probably, Anne? The probably, Anne, is probably thousands died, but we don't really have those bodies either. So, and you know, when you look at Pompeii, Anne, what's the first thing that you think of? Do you think that thousands of people died? Because that's what historians tell you. But now the archaeologists are saying, actually, it's probably not thousands, right?
Yeah, well, because I've had information from you and various other places, yes, I don't think it was thousands, no.
But Anne, we're going to turn this around. On the other hand, Anne, when they looked at
but of course there's not thousands of plasters, or
no, there
you
isn't.
could say, oh well, we've got very few plasters, but
there isn't. They're in probably
but
about
all I
100.
know is that
Yeah.
all I know is that I know this is going way off the subject, but last night I watched the Rwanda slaughter.
Oh, yeah.
Few years,
go on.
And 100. It was 100 hours. They killed thousands and thousands. But that was just so. I mean, I've never seen that many dead people before.
Yeah, but the one, Anne, you just said it.
I don't think they did that.
And you've just said it. You've never seen so many dead people, but you don't see it in places like Verulamium, Cameron June. But Anne, what we got to do, we got to do unbiased. You've got the thing of Pompeii. Yeah, there's probably about 100 odd cast bodies or whatever, right? There's not museums full of them. There's no museum full of these things, right? But they said about Herculaneum, they said nobody died at Herculaneum because we haven't found the bodies. But when they excavated a certain part of Herculaneum on the shoreline next to the quay, they did find hundreds of people in these buildings, right? So sometimes the evidence can be the reverse of what we're saying, right? But you've got to find the bloody bodies. And in Rwanda, in 1997, the Tutsis and the Hutus, 600,000 people dying in a very short period of time. You've got the bones, right? But you don't have them at Verulamium. Right, anyway, let's crack on, Anne. And it was relevant what you said. So Goff would be very pleased. And by the way, Goff's not here tonight because Bill upset him last week, right? So anyway, so
last week.
That's why you upset him. Do you know what? It's really upsetting. It's really upset me tonight, right? If Goff was here, I'd have a full class. Gutting.
Yeah.
We'll have a right go in next week. We will. Anyway, the point is, right, I really love reconstructed things like this. So when we go to the next image, right, we've got to start thinking how much was actually reconstructed and rebuilt, right? Was there anything left to rebuild, right? Even at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, some of the buildings that were not wiped out by the little boy and so on, little boy, little man, little boy, can't remember. Anyway, but basically on the 6th and the 9th of August, right, some of the buildings that were torched are still standing, right? Yeah, whatever. So we can't assume that everything was flattened like this, right? Oh, and Anne, I've just missed my point, right? I've missed my cue. Anne, my cue is this illustration here, right? And the reason why it's this illustration here, right, is that when a city's in flames, you don't stay around, do you?
No.
So you're not going to stay around thinking, right, that building over there is not burning properly. Let's just go over and push it over, right? When a city's in flames, you just leave it and you move on to something else. Hence the thing with my parents' garage. Hence what we're talking about. Hence, do we all actually really, really know the story? And I think the story is very different from what historians have said. Anyway, let's go on to doing the little bit of rebuilding of Verulamium. So let's do a little bit of rebuilding. So let's just go to that little chart that we had earlier on, and I'm going back to my notes here. And my notes basically looking ahead. So what we've got, massive change. Now, one of you mentioned it the other week, right? I don't know who it was. I think it was one of you guys, not the other week, a while ago. One of you said maybe Verulamium and Camalodunum and Londinium were deliberately set alight because they wanted to rebuild them bigger and better. They certainly did that at Camalodunum. They certainly did that at Londinium. Guess what? They certainly did that at Verulamium, right? So what you've got this really massive chunky wall, and most people don't see this wall. So when you get off your coach or your bus, you go to see the museum, which is in front of you, and then a little bit away you've got the theatre, right? And then a little bit away, well, we've got the theatre, image of the theatre. Oh, hang on, where's the theatre? We've got the image of, oh, hang on, not that. We got the image of the theatre, right? And then you see a bit of wall in front of you, and then you go back into your coach and you go away. But if you start looking into the trees and the bushes, what you do see is this wonderful, hang on a minute, I've got all my slides around the wrong way, this wonderful bit of wall. And actually, we were talking last night, if one of us ever wins the lottery, right, I'm going to hire a minibus, right? And we're just going to visit Roman towns and just look at the walls and nothing else, right? And I got 4 people in Cumbria who want to do that. And I said, Bill will just come and see the Roman walls with us. We're going to have an orgasmic trip looking at just Roman walls around Britain, right? And this is going to be one of them. We're not going to look at bath blocks. We're not going to look at mosaics. We're just going to look at Roman walls.
Chester's got some nice walls. Chester.
Yes, Chester does. And Chester really, really does. But we would put into that list, of course, Bill. We would definitely put into that list Igaya, and
we can have a magical mystery tour.
Killian would be there. And also, Kaya went, right? By the way, we wouldn't be bothered too much with Corinium, right? But there is a bit of wall at Corinium. But the stuff at Gloucester is actually under the road. It's like you can go down steps to see it. So we would be going to see Gloucester, Gleavham. Anyway, cracking on. So we're moving away from the fire, right? So basically what we've got, this is all rebuilt under the Flavians. The Flavian emperor starting with Vespasian. There we go. That Roman emperor himself, that Roman general himself became an emperor. So there we go. And we got the likes of Titus and so on. So what we got is that when we sort of move on a little bit and sort of we don't go much beyond about AD 100, because that's not what we're here to do tonight. So it's very like, now this is a really interesting thing, right? The game pieces change, right? And the game pieces change that it remains a municipum, but the people who are there to rebuild Verulamium and Camalodunum, not so much Londinium, are actually, the Romans actually assist the local governance to actually rebuild. So it's in other words, it's rebuilt in a more of a Roman style, a bit more like this rather than like this, right? So in other words, you've got the idea of forum, you've got the idea of baths. Obviously not like that. I think that's wrong. But what we do have, we have this bloody theatre, which isn't too far away from what this looks like, right? Oh, and there is one thing, right? There is one thing. We've got to mention Pete on this one, right? Bill, did Pete ever tell you the story that I went to a services one day, right? And it cost me £8 to buy Pete a cup of coffee, right? So I was really shocked. It used up all my money. So by the time we got to this locality, St. Albans, Pete had to pay for us to go in and see the theatre. It's terrible, isn't it? But there is one thing, right? that bank over there, right? It cost me £8 for a bloody coffee. I'm telling you now, right? I was shocked.
Oh dear.
I had a heart attack. I thought I am never going to buy anyone a drink ever again, and Bill knows that fact, don't you, Bill? Anyway, the point is, right, that bank there is really interesting. That's part of the theatre. We're going to do this again in the future, not today, but that bank itself is actually full of oyster shells, right? And it was great. I had my daughter that day, Beth, and she was going to some kind of a theatrical thing, right? And basically that bank itself is actually full of oyster shells. Absolutely brilliant.
Oh.
Right. And actually, I did actually pay for Peter's fuel as well. I never did that again. Anyway, so
is this Colchester?
No, we're back to. I got to get back to my thingamajig, right?
Verlaine?
No, it's not Colchester. We're just doing Verulamium tonight, love. Right. So there we go. Read those key facts while I do my rest of the stuff. So, like Common and Junum, it was built bigger and better, right? And we've got that sort of sense. There's no longer any timber buildings; it's all stone, marble, local stone and flint and all the rest of it. Lots of public buildings appeared. So, in other words, what we've got, back to the point, it's more of a moving away from sort of the local idea of what a Roman town should be like to a Roman idea of what a Roman town should be like, with proper forums, theatres, and so on, right? As of before, it was obviously a crossing going onto the Watling Street, which would have been the new name of the road that always existed there. And obviously mosaic floors, lots of them. And probably monochrome mosaics before AD 60, and they become polychrome. And when you think about it, within 40 years, people would hardly recognize that this, right? They would hardly recognize what was there before, right? They would know that this is now gone into a period of a proper Roman style city. And when we talk about it, if I want to do the benchmark, right? If I want to do the benchmark, if I sort of spout this off, so if we go to that little chart that we had, if we go to this little chart, so the biggies in Roman era Britain, Eroxeter, Viraconium. The biggies are going to be the likes of Caliver Atropatum, Silchester, Cirencester, Corinium. The biggies are going to be Lindum, which moved from a fort location into Lincoln into sort of a city. Camelandunum, Colchester, York, Baracum, Londinium, London. And so those are the big ones. Carmarthen, Moradunum was quite a small affair, right? You could basically say that maybe Gloucester wasn't as big as Corinium, Cirencester. Maybe Exeter wasn't one of the big ones, but the ones that I have mentioned were pretty sizable. Tens of thousands of people and populations. So going back to that chart again, because what I want to do is, I'm very aware that we started quite late today, because we went off on one. Very interesting. Look at that weird brooch there. It's that very strange brooch, a bow brooch. Samian ware, lots of Samian ware being found there. And when you think about Samian ware doesn't just tell you about the people's wealth. It doesn't tell you about their ability to bring things into the country. It tells you that they were probably much into very ornate fruits and vegetables that they had on their tables. The pottery was there to display the expensive fruit as much as the fruit displayed the expensive pottery.
Is there any way you can make those pictures bigger and the lettering bigger?
Isn't this? hang on, guys. Isn't this filling the full screen?
It's
Well,
not. It's readable.
well, no. Well, I suppose.
Right, guys. Henry, Richard, is the image on the full screen? One of you should have told me this, right? Is it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, mine isn't.
Yep, it is.
It is good. I'll listen to Henry. Thanks, Henry.
Carl, I'm using an iPad and it's fantastic.
Hey, I get Dell. Nobody likes a creep. Okay, thank you. So basically, can I just go back to the point I made at the beginning? Excavations at Verulamium, right? Excavations by Sir Mortimer Wheeler and his wife Tessa Wheeler. Kathleen Kenyon, I tell you what, she had big jugs. Revealed one of the best preserved Roman towns in Britain. The point is, when you go there, there's not as much there as you might see at Eberarchy York. Is not as much there as you might see at the likes of karl-james, but lots of it have actually been excavated and covered back up. And there you go, the Verulamium Museum. It is a world-class museum. I tell you what, when I first went to the Verulamium Museum, it was like a red brick sort of, 1960s Andy Burnham type building, right? But now it's a really nice looking building, right? Really sexy building. So it does bring Verulamium to life. I do believe that's my Verulamium bit done today. So any time in the future, right? We will be doing the likes of Boudica. And if we're going to be doing Boudica, we may as well actually go back to this brilliant image and actually conclude on Verulamium. So it's a fascinating story, Verulamium. It really is, from an Iron Age capital that decided not to fight Rome and instead became one of Britain's Roman towns as a municipum. Its story reminds us that conquest isn't always about battles. I think that's a really important thing for me to say. Sometimes history is shaped by cooperation. And I tell you what, Anne, you know what? If you resisted, Genghis Khan, right? Your city was burnt to the ground. Everyone was killed and no trace of it was left. But if you said to Genghis, look, we'll open the city to you, right? You could do whatever you like with it. Genghis Khan allowed everyone to live. And as long as your city did what the Mongols decided, then everything was fine. So, you don't always have to be fighting and raping and pillaging, right? Sometimes survival means adaptation, and few places illustrate that better than Verulamium. So maybe what I'm going to leave you with is thinking about this before we go on to the next bit. This has already been answered.
Those bacon things.
Why do you think the Catavillanite people surrendered rather than resisting? Right? You can answer that question yourself. My answer to that would be simple: that they were probably already Romanized and knew what was coming. Was Verulamium already becoming Roman before AD 43 through trade? I would say yes. You can work that out yourself. Did Roman citizenship change everyday life of many? Or did it just benefit the elite? Well, it changed everybody's life because everyone was needed in this process of change. Could Verulamium have become Britain's capital instead of Londinium? Didn't I say that at the beginning? Yes, I did. That's one of the weirdest questions you could ever have. Why isn't it Verulamium, which was already a hit place? Or Khalifa Atrabata, maybe that's a bit too far away from where it needs to be. But Verulamium should have become the capital of Britain, not Camalodunum, not Londinium, not Eberarchy. And obviously the Boudican destruction layer, what was that exactly like? So all of these, when we think about this, it basically looks at the birth of something very, very special. And the last thing I would mention when we look at this, right, is basically that very point there. Now, interestingly enough, there's a strange thing between this thing here. The martyrdom of St. Albans in AD 290 laid the foundations for medieval St. Albans. That's a really interesting one. So what you've got Iron Age town, city, becomes a municipal Roman sort of Iron Age city. And then you've got a link with early Christianity, or sort of midway Christianity, with the martyrdom of St. Albans. You've got this new religion, which had been based on a pagan religion, and everything. And the really, really interesting thing is I think some of you might agree, or some of you might disagree. I think the biggest change in Britain was in fact Christianity overall, massively, right? Christianity was more influential in the change of the structure and thinking of people in Britain than Roman civilization. So the legacy of Rome, as I keep saying, is in fact Christianity. So what we're going to do now, I think it's 8:29. I might actually go on to the next little bit of the presentation, and then we'll have a little bit of a break, right? Because I know Del needs to feed his dogs. Richard needs to go off and have some luxurious chocolates or something. And but anyway, looking at this again, look at this last image. This is actually more of a building of the likes of Lyndon, right? And I would say that there's something wrong with this illustration, right? It didn't. So the thing is, right, it did not die. It was rebuilt. But rebuilding towns and cities didn't all happen on a Wednesday afternoon. It was a slow process where things would develop, because there's no way they could have got all those craftsmen in to do this, right? So some timber buildings stayed, most of them were demolished, replaced with stone. And this place itself would very much, I got to say something odd. This place would very much be the same place in a way as it had been before the Romans. But the thing that was clearly different was that, if you want to look at the martyrdom of St. Albans in 290, the coming of Christianity, I think that was the biggest change and the great legacy of the Roman world. So, right. So let's just, oh, yes. Right. Anne. Do you know, I'm picking on Anne tonight, but I'm being nice to Anne tonight. So I'm picking on Anne in a nice way, right? Except, Anne, you missed the Irish bridge builders, which was all set up for you, but that's life, right?
When?
Right, when we did the Irish bridge builders.
Oh.
Anne, just quickly, Anne, I can do this for Anne quickly. Anne, look at that. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Murphy builds a bridge, and it's too low.
Oh.
So what happens? You take the bridges over the bridge.
You did do it.
Yeah, I didn't think you were here anyway, so I thought you buggered off. Anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to do the slavery thing. But Anne, what's your initial impression of the Romans? Would they have used a lot? You've been with me too long, Anne, right? It's almost as if you've been with me a lifetime now. So Anne, with everything that we've discussed, do you feel that slavery in Britain was a big thing in the Roman era? Deep breath, Anne. Let's have it. Let's have those words.
Well, yes. I don't know about in Britain, but in Rome.
Hang on, Anne. You've got yes and
yeah. Well,
you don't have to go. Yeah, you don't have to go. Yeah, don't have to go. Yeah, but so basically, when we look at the idea of slavery, it comes from the background of, now we know that when you've got slaves who are not treated well, they don't do the best job, right? There's no way that the ancient pyramids were built using slaves. We know that's the fact now. They were built by people who wanted to build the Great Pyramids. There's no way you could have built the Great Pyramids with slavery. There's just no way it could have been done. It just would not have been done, right? Yeah. Flinders Petrie said that the accuracy of the pyramids was basically to a 0.001 degree or something when he surveyed it, right? You would not have had that with slave labor, as seen with the Stott program in from 1941 onwards. The Stott was the sort of the armaments minister before the likes of Albert Speer. And he was the one that we had the Stott program. And basically, towards the end of the war, people who were slaves, instead of allowing armaments to go out, they would not put cordite into bombs, and they would not they would urinate on the electrical switches. So when the V1s and the V2s went up, they exploded. That's what happens when you use slaves to build weapons, right? You do not get a good job when you use slaves. So when you're thinking of using slavery in Roman Britain, what did it exactly mean? A few weeks ago, Anne, can you remember we had that writing from Londinium that basically said, well, I as a slave owned another slave who sold another slave, and I got paid money from somebody else for this slave who owned another slave. And you're thinking, well, that don't sound like slavery to me. How can a slave own someone and then be paid and actually have an income, but then that slave belongs to somebody else who's actually a slave themselves? That don't sound like slavery to me. But then again, it's the interpretation of what slavery is. What's that?
It's got to be managed.
Well, hang on. All right then, Anne. Right, Anne. Here we go. I'm your bitch, right? You pay me, right? And therefore, it don't work. It's not really slavery, is it? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So, so when we think about it, Anne, when you talk about,
depends what you want to do.
Exactly, Anne. So, so what is slavery? What does slavery mean? You know
build
what I mean?
The walls. Who built the walls? The Roman walls.
Actually, and most of the evidence to say who built Hadrian's Wall was actually built by the Roman military. They didn't use slaves. Those are the ones who carved the stone for the quarries. You know what I mean? So, anyway, back to what we said. And then slavery's got a meaning when we come out to mining. Oh my God, I gotta get in with this. Tell you what, we'll have a little break in 5 minutes, and then it's gonna be 10-minute break, and we're gonna crack on. So I gotta crack on. So there is evidence of some slavery existing in Britain, but how do you define that slavery? Slavery was a normal part of the Roman economy throughout the empire. Britain was no exception, but slavery in Britain was probably slightly different, right? Roman law, right? Britain was a Roman province for almost well over 370 years. Roman law, which allowed slavery, but tiers of slavery, applied throughout the province. Slaves could work in households. Slaves could be paid. Labor on farms and villas. Slaves could own slaves. Slaves could work in mines and quarries, serve in workshops and businesses, be bought, sold, inherited, or freed. This tells us slavery almost certainly existed in Britain, but how we interpret slavery is very, very different wherever you are. And you know, this is a good point, right? This is a good point, Anne, right? After the Jacobite Rebellion of 1746, lots of the Jacobites were actually indentured prison slaves, right? So they would be given to somebody as a slave or sold to somebody as a slave, but they were in fact a prisoner, right? They were a prisoner of war, right? So the definition of slavery is vague, and then that person would eventually no longer be a prisoner. So therefore they're no longer a slave. But do you know what I mean? You get the indiscretions. So when we think about something like this, who in the room is a slave, right? Anne. Why am I picking on Anne tonight? For God's sake, I'm obsessed with Anne tonight. Anne, we're going to do it. Anne, who do you reckon the slaves are in this illustration? Quickly, go on, give it to us, quick.
Well, somebody doing the water. There's somebody here down on the left, yeah. There's somebody at the table with apples doing the food.
That could just be a servant, a paid servant, but then again, define the difference.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Maybe one of the women, I don't know.
Because that redhead there could actually be a nurse.
A concubine. Oh no.
You know, there's so in other words,
a woman.
Who is, and actually
the one courtesan.
Exactly, the one that could be the slave, in fact, is this one. This person could be a Greek scholar who's actually a slave to the house, but is still paid to teach the son of this man who's blowing a little boat.
Yeah.
So there we go, Anne. There we go. So so when you think about it, we're going to some inscriptions after the break, right? That's what we're going to do, right? But what we're going to do, I think I'll post through this now, right? So large Roman buildings like Lulligston, Fishbourne, Chedworth, Woodchester, lots of these places you could think had sort of all types of people. So let's look at all types of people. Not everyone working these estates would have been slaves, or the definition of slaves. Basically, a slave could be the name for a prisoner, right? There you go, like Ben-Hur, king of
And,
Judah.
you know, all
Yeah.
the people who were killed in the Colosseum, and
or some of those gladiators did it because they wanted to. So many
were slaves, I think.
Some of them were, some of them weren't. Some of them,
Yeah.
some of those people actually did it as a job. So many would have been tenant farmers working the land, hired labor, or estate workers. So when we think about this, the one thing that we've got is, for example, which we're going to do after the break, we've got these things, which are tombstones. Some tombstones record a freed slave. And do you know what? We're going to be able to read every single word on that tombstone by after the break, right? So we're going to do that. Some of these tombstones are dedicated to occasional mention of household slaves. Roman names can indicate someone was once enslaved and later manumitted, which means freed. These inscriptions provide direct documentary evidence. And one thing that actually, which we'll just do quickly, right, are curse tablets. Curse tablets. Some curse tablets have been found in Britain. Basically, it's written on copper, or it's written in lead and folded, right, and chucked into water like Bath, right? The baths at Bath, right? Refer to slaves accused of theft or involved in disputes. So at Roman baths, curse tablets occasionally distinguish freed people and slaves. So you can imagine one tablet saying, that bloody slave over there, he nicked something off me, or that freed person over there nicked something off me. Showing that contemporaries recognize both groups. So hopefully we will get to do this at the end when we mining districts. So the Mendip lead mines, were that worked by slaves or normal people? The Welsh gold mines, slaves or normal people? Iron working areas like Kent, normal or military people? So all that to think about. So I've got a nice bit of text to actually go through there. And so we'll do that. We'll do that after the break, if we've got enough time. So guys, it's going to be a short break tonight, and Del can tell Bill all about his exploits walking the dog. Del, you got to tell Bill about the dog walking, because he's going to love that. Bill, Dal's going to tell you about his dog walking. Right?
Oh, I can't wait.
Got you.
Do you think you're going to go?
I'm glad you can. Right, go on then. Off you go.
Bill, anything you want to say before we have a 10-minute break?
Just a quick observation on your comment about only a few skeletons found after St. Albans battle. Wouldn't that be normal? Because on all battles, I guess, the victors would have dragged and recovered all your old dead, thrown them on a huge funeral pyre, and then allow the losers to do the same thing. The last thing you want on the streets are rotting corpses and a hygiene issue and all the rats, if you're going to start rebuilding and doing things there. That would be normal, I guess. Normal practice.
And actually, Bill, you've got a good point. So therefore, that indicates that the destruction at Verulamium was not complete.
Yeah.
So that would make complete sense. Yeah, it would. So therefore, that's why you got a lack of bodies. So yeah, that's a really good point, Bill. I'm glad you mentioned that. Thank you very much. Right, Henry. Anything you want to say, babe? Because we want to hear what Owen's got to say about his dog walking. Because Bill wants to hear this.
Just a quick one, different angle. What about you assume it's actually a new town planning arrangement? So let's burn the whole place down. We didn't like it, and we'll actually construct something else. That's why you got no bodies.
And there is something else about what you've just said. It was actually typically later medieval practice that you would actually just set light to a whole town or a city, right? And it would cleanse the thing. This is what they used to do after plagues. And you could actually cynically look at the reason why the Great Fire of London actually happened, because they wanted to get rid of the plague, and it did get rid of the plague. So that was it.
Yeah,
makes perfect sense. Right, Anne, anything you want to say, because Bill's actually waiting to hear from Del and his dog walking.
No, that's You've asked me a few questions to keep me awake, so
All right,
no,
all
I
right.
did. I
All right, Patton.
actually I know where Verulamium is
Anne,
now.
it's fine. We get it. We get it. Pat, anything you want to say?
I'd like to say I've been to Herculaneum, and it was really great. You walk in, and the town is all like 10 feet lower than where you're walking in, you know, a slope. You take the slope in, and then follows you down. So it looks just like pictures, you know. It was gorgeous. And rooms had paintings in them, and wasn't as big as Pompeii, but I mean, it was big enough. It was doable, you know, going to every room and every place.
I tell you what. I tell you what. That sounds really nice. It does. It does. It does.
It was nice. Yeah. The little hole. And the story was that someone was digging in their garden and found bits of it, but I don't know if that's what you read.
I think that is actually true. It was found by complete accident. It was, and they found the thing. So
yeah.
The question is, the big question is, I've never actually answered this question. Would they have found Herculaneum, or did they know it existed? They certainly know about Pompeii. It's all of these questions, and there is the question. Maybe there's another lost city out there that they've not found.
Yeah.
So it's possible. It's possible, but not as big as Pompeii, that's for sure. Anyway, thank you for that, Pat. Thank you very much. Dick, anything you want to say quickly? And Owen, because I want my break. Bill, wait, Bill. Richard's got to say something. Richard, you got to turn your mic on.
Hey.
Come on, Rich.
He's gone. Oh.
Well, mainly down to bodies and everything not being found. Like a lot of them are buildings are built over the top. As you say, over the years, the original ground level, you know, it can rise by sort of 8-10 feet. So half the time the bodies are only found when there's an older building is demolished and a new construction's put up.
Yeah.
With deep foundations.
Yeah. So
I think that's the case in a lot of places. They just don't find the bodies en masse, you know.
Yeah, we could still be looking. In other words, that's what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well done. Well done. Well done.
As for Bill.
For Bill, well, he's left the room when you said that, right? You've got to make.
Oh, he heard me.
I'm gonna put the kettle on.
All right, we got guys. I want you all back at basically about 54 minutes past 8 now. Come on, hurry up. I gotta feed the sheeps.
We'll begin at the beginning. It is spring night. More or less now, it's more time.
Where I went to, you went to. No, look.
One house we keep success before.
Bury St Edmunds? Might have been. Just come to me. Do you want me to make tea?
All right.
I'm having a coffee.
Okay.
Anne, are you on tea duties?
Real pressure. And just no fault of his own. He'd walk.
I'll have a black tea, please. Thank you.
Feet and pace. Just got beat them all ends up. Like Ratchet would say, he opened his face a bit, but it was an edge.
I was about to say that you're a bowler, Carl.
Well, the bowler at heart.
You hurt us with the bat in the World Cup final.
Almost wonder here, Carlos, whether this is where Phil Salts is right. I mean, open the shoulders up a little bit more. He's got such good support from Ravindra, 21 off just the 12 balls, so he's allowing that scoring to continue at the other end. Whether he sees that this is a contest, he's so good over the offside Phil Salt. Mid-wicket space is available. We keep that mid-wicket and try and sneak a dot ball in there.
There's the trash. Oh, and it just beats the diving Archer. I think that's a 1 for 4. Archer's so far in off the boundary, trying to stop those twos. So, just got it over his head.
Something else to the box, there's only 3 fingers in the ring. Someone has fell asleep. Someone has fell asleep, 3 in the circle, and I think that's why Salt just swung at it. And he walked straight to the umpire and told him there's only been 3 in the circle and it should be a no ball. There are a couple of things there, good awareness from him of that. And 2, we talked about earlier, the boundary riders coming in off the boundary to save 2. And that's the important effect of it. Red bit sneaking off the boundary. There's more space behind it. So either go through the field or over it like Salt did.
Well, this could be a big moment in the game as the umpires are going to have a look upstairs to see if what Carlos is saying is true.
The mid-off was way back at long off, so you spot on the head, mid-wicket cover, and then that third that point in place. Got Carlos.
Good spot, and a spot that will hurt the Southern Brave here. This is a free hit that cannot be out of this delivery.
Oh, some weeks, Richard, I can't handle this.
Back to the leg side, and so you can hear him on the stop.
Carl, if you're there.
Am I here?
Are you?
Am I?
No, we're taking Jessie to Gatwick next month.
Talk about it so much.
And we're staying with Jane's sister in Luton.
Yeah.
On provision, I can go to St Albans.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
been a
you
few
got to.
times, but I've insisted.
Really good show. Phil
On the
you
Salt.
way
gotta go.
home,
Then you look up and
I
like,
have
what
to
the
go
film
there.
is about.
You got to go.
Option might be
Yeah,
when you
but the thing is,
extra fielder out.
you know what I do?
You're a nice person yourself.
I scrape a bit off and take it home.
Don't say anything.
Would any
Straight
of
away.
this country want
I've got
Oh.
lots of bits from Strata, Florida in the house.
Make sure you don't take too many oyster shells.
Oh, I don't want them. There's Lord Trumpeth corn.
And that's the extra ball in that lot of 5 that has hurt the Southern Brave. 33 from 34.
But I'd like to see if there's any few bit of loose bits and pieces that could be trodden underfoot, and I rescue them.
Oh, you're one of those. Oh, right, yeah.
Yes, I do label them and put the dates and say where they're from. But they might be trodden underfoot.
Oh, right. I see what you mean. I see
Yes.
what you mean. I see what you mean.
I've got
Bill. Del wants to tell you about his dog walking in Verulamium.
Can you do it tomorrow?
Oh, not tomorrow. No, but when I go to Strata, Florida,
I'll come down. You can tell me all about it, okay?
yes. When I go to Strata, Florida, there's often a few sort of bit loose pieces.
Bill likes a bit of... Actually, Bill's been hanging around with some loose pieces from my steak.
No, but I rescue them.
I
do label them.
Hang on, mate. You
I've got a whole. I've got a whole tile.
Oh, come on.
Oh, well done.
Call me a wrecker or what?
Well done. Right.
It was loose.
You're lush. You're lush.
It was on the floor and I rescued it.
You know in the chat books it says I would like that. Does it mean that you would like to come and join our Beano just looking at Roman walls?
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
I would,
right.
as long as I can get transport.
Well, no, Bill would be driving a minibus. Bill's driving a minibus. Right, guys, we gotta crack on.
Come on.
We gotta crack on.
Yes, I would love to do that.
Crack on.
As long as I can collect
Well, Bill's
a bit.
driving a bus and he wants your dog. He wants you to bring your dog along as well.
Oh, she'd love it.
When he wins the lottery.
Yes.
Yes, I know.
If I win, I'll do the same thing.
Bill's a very rich man.
What's happened there?
Anne!
What?
Can you see the... Anne, let
Come
me
on,
bloody
it's
talk!
9 o'clock. Come
Right,
on,
is
it's
it?
9
Can you
o'clock.
see the...
And
Oh my God! I'm trying to talk! Anne,
what?
Can you see the curse tablet?
Yes.
Is it Roman or Greek?
For fuck... Yeah, I'm glad. Look, guys.
It's
Let me
Latin.
get on.
It's Latin.
Let me get on. Thank you.
Go on, then.
I tell you what, right?
I'm switching off.
I have arsenic tablets after these classes, you know. It just does my head in. Right. Now, just one thing about slavery. Look, let me talk. Just like one thing about slavery is that when I was talking about mining evidence then, and one of the things that we see with the mining evidence in regards to Roman era Britain is that the iron working in the world, for example, in Kent, you can see that that's clearly organized by an authority, probably Roman military miners to start off with, and it goes to civilian. One of the things that is clearly done by the Roman military is the mining of gold in West Wales. And this is one thing that I've not really spoken about in length, and we don't have a lot of time tonight. But one thing that I would say is the amount of military evidence in West Wales, Camel and Dunham, Pym Saint, for example. There's lots of Roman military activity, forts, lengthways, canal areas, and so on. Roman military mining. And that's there to control the gold mining. One of the things that I would clearly say is this, right? is that when we get onto the tin stuff, if we've got any time to do that tonight, is that it's almost as if very little evidence in Britain is to be seen where slaves are actually used in the mining. Because mining is already going on on the Great Orme, for example, in the Roman era, and it has been, the copper mining has been going on at Great Orme for well over 1,600 years by the time we get to the Roman era. So, you know, when you think about this, so unlike imperial mines in Spain, the evidence in Britain suggests a mixed workforce for mining: soldiers, civilians, convicts, a couple of slaves maybe, but no specific evidence for slaves is what we can find. Anyway, when we think about this as well, there lots of archaeologists, when they're looking at evidence for slavery, they often say, oh, bones on somebody that they're excavating show signs of heavy physical stress. Well, Roman soldiers show signs of heavy physical stress. They weren't slaves. Poor nutrition. People in any situation can have poor nutrition. Health reasons, lack of food. That doesn't mean to say you're a slave. Evidence of hard labor. Well, Bill, he's got evidence of hard labor. He's not a slave. So when you look at this, but you do occasionally find signs of shackles, right? He only took him out of his shackles last week. Anyway, so however, these remains cannot automatically identify slaves. If you're in shackles, it doesn't mean to say you're a slave. You might actually be a convict, right, or a prisoner. The other question is, before we actually get onto the nitty-gritty and those carvings, right, is, were Britons themselves enslaved? Now, this is a really interesting question. What you can see in the image, we'll explain what that is in a moment. But following the conquest of AD 43 and later campaigns in Wales and northern Britain, prisoners of war could legally become slaves. So in other words, a prisoner of war becomes a slave, or are they always going to be a slave because they're a prisoner of war? We don't know. The Roman writer Strabo noted that Britain exported slaves before the conquest. That's really interesting. And after conquest, it is likely that captured Britons continued to be sold elsewhere in the empire, but there's no real evidence of it. So likewise, slaves from Gaul, Germany, North Africa, or the Eastern Mediterranean may have been brought into Britain. But likewise, if you're looking at DNA, Roman traders might actually be from various parts of the Roman Empire. Roman soldiers are going to be from various parts of the Roman Empire. So when we think about all of this, it's undeniable that, say, for example, an illustration like this, one of archaeology's biggest challenge is to identify where slaves would have been kept. If a slave was kept at the bottom of your bed, you're not going to find any evidence for it. If a slave was kept in a farm building, you're not going to find any evidence of it. It's said that slaves were inevitably kept alongside other free workers. Is a worker free anyway? You know, all those questions. So one interesting point is that Britain relied less on slavery than, for example, Rome. One of you mentioned, for example, the Colosseum earlier on, and people being used in the Colosseum. They may have been prisoners of war, not slaves. Britain had relatively small urban populations, few gigantic estates. This was a land of paid workers, tenant farmers, local communities, soldiers, various different roles. So while slavery may undeniably be part of Roman Britain, the archaeological evidence is usually indirect. This, as I say, this might be direct or indirect evidence of slavery. You know, shackles. It's only been released from manacles in the past few days, but it's extremely difficult to identify individual slaves in an archaeological context, except when you get carvings. And that's where we're going to go now. So I want to do this carvings bit, and then hopefully we can do a little bit about mining in the, oh, that's not a slave. That's my little lamb. Anyway, so let's look at this. This is really, really interesting, right? Now, reading these inscriptions, DM is a precursor to the name. So Victor. And if we look at the other plaque, it's also got DM is precursor to Regina, right? So we've already started reading the Latin on these, for example, and this isn't too difficult to actually read, except the translation is actually being Englishized from Latin, right? So it actually read for word. We actually have a little bit of that in a moment, right? So if we're going to look at this, and there it is. This person was originally a slave, and guess what? They were freed, right, on the Schleslange, right? So let's go to the Latin inscription. Let's get this big for all of you, right? So the tombstone of Victor was discovered at the Albia Roman fort. Basically, Albia Roman fort is South Shields, and this dates to the late 100s, right? The Latin inscription reads, "To the spirits of the departed, Victor Amor," there we go, age 20, freedman of Numaranus, cavalryman of the first Asturian Aila. So you can basically, there's the Astoria, that's the Asturium Aila, right? And there's Aila at the beginning. So the Asturium Aila, which is basically the Asturium cavalry. Aila is cavalry. And then what we've got is we've obviously got the word Victor, right? Now, Victor was of the Moorish people. There we go. He was a Moor. He was a Movorum, which was basically the nation of the Mauritanians in North Africa. So this is how we're reading it. It's not that difficult to actually read this at all, right? And this individual belonged to a guy by the name of Numaranus. There he is, Numaranus. So Numaranus, and basically there's the age. He was 20 years of age. He reached liberty, which was basically he was freed. So this was a freed slave. All the information actually on there. It's not that actually difficult to read when you get used to Latin. Now, Mauritania, as we know, there we go, the nation of the Moors, Mavorum. Moors is basically the shortened term for Mauritania, which is North Africa, which is northwestern Africa. There we go, 20 years old. Really interesting that we've actually got there. He was freed, liberty, liberatus, right? So this individual himself was actually the slave of a cavalryman. By the age of 20, he was a freed person, but at the age of 20, he died, right? Which is quite tragic. So when you think about this, the questions have to be, is that this is I'm going to use some words that I wouldn't really use, but this was humanitarian slavery, right? You're not necessarily going to be a slave all your life, right? And the other thing as well is when you think about all of this thing to do with slavery and the skin colors and who people were, when we got this, we look at quite a multifaceted cultural landscape in Britain. Back in the Roman period, you got people from Africa in the Roman period in Britain. You've got people who are Chinese living in Britain, right? You've got people from Syria living in Britain, which we're going to go on to the next plaque. I'm sorry I could have spent much more time on this, but this is, you can probably get an idea of reading this. And yes, Bill, he was from Palmyra, right? So this is really interesting. This is actually easier to read than the last one, right? So and basically we've got the name of the Catalani people on here as well. So we've got Regina, liberty, become liberated, right? So interestingly enough, from this, right, and the person that we're talking about is Baratus. Baratus was a Syrian from Palmyra living in Britain. Guys, very interesting that, isn't it? And actually the text at the bottom is actually Palameric, Aramaic script. So in fact, this is the Rosetta Stone of South Shields because it's got two scripts on it, right? So this woman here, so let's do this. Regina was the freed slave who became a wife. Perhaps even more famous is this two. It's amazing. So all the information is there. She's a Catalani tribes person. She was a slave in Britain, who was enslaved, who was purchased, right? So in other words, convicta, she was basically a slave, but she was became Liberty. She took the Liberty, Regina, that's the name. So she took the Liberty. She took on Liberty being freed by Baratus, who was a Palmyran, right? And the Palmyric people, the nation of the Palmyric people. So when you're reading that, it's national. So if you want to actually, if you look like to like with this, you can actually get an idea that this do you know how old she was when she died? She was 30 years old. It's on there. So it's the age and exactly. So this is so easy to read, right? And if you go with the basics, if you wrote this down and you thought, right, when you see that word liberata, somebody was freed, right, who was belonging to Baratus, who was a Palmyran. If you get the word nation, and the word before tells you the part of the empire they were from, the Catavalani people, and she was aged out of 30. And to be honest with you, we just translated the whole thing quite quickly. Mind you, I did have the notes to do it, but there's the formulas there. And the tombstones are quite simple, to be honest with you. And obviously you've got the Aramaic there at the bottom. So here we go. I tell you what, guys, if I've got like 8 minutes left for all you guys, then we can do a bit of slavery if we can get onto it. Not slavery, the tin stuff. So in other words, her magnificent tombstone, even what we got is magnificent. It's a remarkable monument in Britain. It's that link. So when we think about this, going back, the victor's inscription is particularly powerful because it demonstrates that Roman Britain was remarkably diverse. Within a single stone, we have a man born in North Africa. There we go. He's a Moor from North Africa. The person who owned the guy was a Roman legionary from Spain, a cavalryman from Spain. The individual was freed, and this is a commemorative plaque on the Hadrianic frontier, right? And it is these two are excellent examples of living enslaved and being freed. And I'm loving this type of detail, right? I'm loving this detail. So unfortunately, we got to go on to the next thing, which is one single slide, right? And if I'm not shut down by Cadu, we will be having another illicit pillar, and I'll be slagging off Cadu again. Right, so, okay, so we got one more little bit of text here, and we did start a little bit late tonight. It was all Bill's fault. He couldn't stop talking, right? It's true. It's true. And it was Bill's fault that he asked Dell a question that went on for a bit longer, Bill. Didn't you, Bill?
True.
Bill, I'm glad you admit that. You're a good man most of the time. Right. Okay. This is the thing. Last week we were left with the question: did the Romans arrive too late? The theory that Cornish tin mining was already in decline. This is a good question. Good theory. When we think about Roman Britain, one question often arises: if Cornwall possessed one of Europe's richest tin resources, why is there so little Roman military evidence west of the Tamar River? Tamar River, Cornwall, not much military evidence as we saw last week. West Wales, for example, gold mining, there's loads of bloody military evidence, including Maradona, and they built an amphitheatre there, right? But Lampeter, you've got Roman archaeological evidence. It's all over the place around here, right? So, Bill, you're still to come to fondle my sheep, Bill. So perhaps the Romans arrived after Cornwall's great tin boom had already passed. Tin was one of the most valuable metals in the Bronze Age. Mixed with copper, it produced bronze, the metal that transformed Europe. Over 4,000 years ago. For over 1,000 years, Cornwall was linked to the Atlantic Europe. Pytheas wrote about Britain's tin trade. The Roman writer Didorius Siculus mentioned tin being transported from Cornwall to the continent, but he didn't mention the Roman military doing that. Whether every detail is accurate is debatable, but they strongly suggest an international trade existed long before Rome conquered Britain, right? Imagine centuries of continuous extraction. Let's just do this nicely, right? There you go. Look at the illustration on the left there. So the richest stream deposits, the easiest tin to collect, would have been worked first. These alluvial deposits required little more than washing river gravels. Over generations, they would gradually become exhausted. Fact. Now, if the Roman military is going to dig deep mines, it needs to be present in Cornwall, and it's not present in Cornwall. So what does that mean? By AD 43, when Claudius invaded Britain, the easily accessible deposits may have been producing far less than they had centuries earlier. If that were true, the Roman government may have looked west and concluded, Peter's there. No, they would have looked west and saw the cost of occupying Cornwall outweighs the economic return. Fact. Now, that's an interesting thing. The reason why I'm saying that's fact, I'm saying historians, fact. That's what historians used to say. Historians used to say that the Romans invaded Britain if they had an economic return. But then historians say the same thing, that there wasn't enough economical return over the whole of Britain for the Roman military to be here in the first place. So why are they here? Big question, but that's not today. So when you think about west of the Tamar, there's not much in the way of military forts. You know, they bumble around too, and that's it, and not for long. So unlike Wales or Northern England, Cornwall lacks a network of permanent military installations like West Wales, like Hadrian's Wall, right? And then it goes to the question, why is there a wall at Hadrian's Wall? Big question. But that's again for another day. So so there might be the odd Roman road going somewhere in Cornwall. It's not really going far. There's not much in the way of settlements, coins, or anything. But there are coins, pottery, not much. So despite Cornwall's reputation, archaeologists have suggested to identify extensive Roman military operations, most surviving mining evidence belongs either to prehistoric communities, this is key, or much later medieval and post-medieval industries. So if there's prehistoric evidence remaining of tin mining, right, and there's later evidence of tin mining and modern evidence of tin mining, that simply means that if the later evidence eradicated the Roman evidence, why didn't it eradicate the prehistoric evidence, which it didn't do? So that's really interesting. So instead, the Romans may simply have continued purchasing tin from local communities and didn't really control production. Because how can you control a few people in the river collecting a few nuggets of tin here and there? Obviously, elsewhere in the empire, tax collecting and production of metals is very different. So even if tin production had declined, Cornwall still offered useful resources. And Cornwall was not just about tin, folks. I've mentioned this before. Cornwall was about copper. Cornwall was about lead. Cornwall was about gold. Cornwall was about zinc, brass. Cornwall was about silver. So there's little bits of all of this, fishing, hunting, and everything else. So Cornwall itself remained sort of outside and very cautiously peaceful compared to what we're seeing elsewhere. So not really much else to say tonight. So we're nearly done. Roman sites may simply await being discovered, but they might not find anything either. Today, most archaeologists think several factors probably combined. So this is basically a conclusion. We'll look at some of the blurb there and we'll call it a day. Tin was still being produced, but in small scale. Cornwall's population appears relatively peaceful in small numbers.
Good.
That's why it explains Pete going up to the staff in the Camelot Hotel, asking why there ain't any Cornish members of staff in there. That was interesting. Existing local trading networks were easier to exploit than direct military control. The economic value of occupying the far southwest may simply have been limited compared with other parts of Britain. So while we cannot say the Cornish tin mining had collapsed, there were still some coming out that hadn't collapsed. It remains an intriguing theory that the greatest age of Cornish tin mining was well in the past. If true, the Romans did not ignore Cornwall because it lacked tin. They may have ignored it because they arrived after its richest and easiest wealth had been extracted. We don't find that, when you think about it, the best tin in later generations was deep under the surface, right? There's no military to do that in Cornwall, and there's no evidence in the Roman era that that's happening, right? We do actually have coins. We got Carn-Yenny and these different places where there's Roman pottery and all the rest of it, and people continue, but it's not that sort of thing. This possibly neatly explains why Britain's richest tin producing region also became one of the least militarized parts of Roman Britain, a paradox that archaeologists are still exploring today. And finally, if we just look at this illustration and just sort of do the tick boxes there, we've already explained the Bronze Age tin boom, rich alluvial tin in the rivers, stream gravels, easiest to extract and worked for over 1,000 years. Cornwall, a major supplier of tin across Atlantic Europe. Roman period, few forts, very little evidence of tin mining. Romans likely bought tin through trade, not by direct control. If you're buying it through trade, you're not a Roman military official needing the military to do it. So there's going to be no evidence left. It's just a continuous thing, leaving not much of a signature. Centuries of mining riches seems gone, exhausted by AD 43, which were accessible. The lods were gone. That's what we call them, the lods. They followed the lods as well across the surface, which were shallow, basically shallow sort of fissures of tin, right? And when they're worked out, you've got to go with the streams. Less tin, less profit, less reason for Rome to conquer and garrison far Cornwall. So, in other words, if the Romans are chucking their crumbs to knockers down the mines, we've got no evidence of it. And knockers were the spirits that lived in the mines, by the way. And I can remember there was that woman who used to do that Victorian farm thing, and she turned around and said to the guy, "Would you like to see my knockers down the mine?" And he got very excited, only to be told. Right, I remember that was the quote. Only to be told there's spirits that used to live down the mine. Right. Anyway, finally, a plausible theory: the greatest age of Cornish tin. There we go. Was the Bronze Age. And things were very different by the Roman period. So Rome traded with Cornwall, but did not fully occupy it. And Pete would have loved that. He really, really would have. And that's the end of my presentation today. I love this illustration. I love these types of illustrations. It's just a really good there, really shaped well. And we're looking there and thinking, well, okay, with a little bit of trade here, that's what's happening, right? But nothing really major. And that legionary there, it's possibly that the legionaries were only ever seen in Cornwall if they were ever there for just about a period of no more than 10 years. And then they buggered off to Wales, and then they buggered off to the likes of Chester, and they got to Hadrian's Wall. So that's my presentation tonight. Thank you very much for watching. It's been quite comical. I do believe, and do a bit more next week, but I'm sure it'll drive Goff nuts. Goff couldn't come this week because he had to go to a funeral. He had to go to a funeral. So we'll all have a go at him next week, because I would have had a full class tonight. That would have been, hang on a minute, 8 of us. So there we go. Right, Reverend William Howells, anything you want to say?
Oh, yes. The memorial stone you showed, Carl, to Rakina, and the garrison of Moors in Arbea Fort, South Shields. I've been there. The fort is worth a visit because it's got a magnificent reconstruction of the West Gate, also a barracks, typical barracks, and also the Praetorium. And all those memorial stones are actually stored in this lovely little museum on the site itself.
I've heard of that. You've obviously seen the 2 stones that I've mentioned.
Yeah, it's called Arbea because apparently that's Arab, and the garrison was generally Moors, But it's a wonderful fort. It really is, But if ever up that way, a lot to see. Yeah, thanks, Carl.
Bill, can I make an observation? And this is quite sort of on the edge. A few years ago, when I come out with my Romans in the Vale of Glamorgan, it shows a black Roman legionary on the front.
It does.
And I was accused of being very woke, very sort of, this is not what would have happened, blah, blah, blah. But I've proven out to be correct over the years. And it does make you wonder, right? And I'm going to spit it out as it is. It makes you wonder, all those dark-skinned people that came over with the Romans, right? They didn't disappear, right? So when we look at British history then, right, they were still here, right? But they're not seen in the written history or properly examined in the archaeology. So when you come up with people saying, everyone was completely pale-skinned and red hair and no black people came over to Britain for a long time, they are completely wrong.
Not
Yeah.
right. Correct. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I
And
agree with that.
And they stayed and interbreeded, of course, over the years.
Yeah,
So,
and as you know, you could have had you could have had a child born north of Scotland who was as dark skinned as anything, right? And you're just thinking, well, what's wrong with that? That's the way it is. And there's this new film. There's this new film that come out called Odysseus, and it's basically Helen of Troy is extremely African looking, but when you look, when you look at the story of Odysseus, it says that Helen of Troy was obviously pale skinned. However, Helen of Troy is a mythical figure, so obviously the interpretation of her being of African descent, I don't see anything wrong with that, because you're not portraying a real person. If you were portraying a real person, then obviously the person should be the one in the text. But
yeah.
And actually, interesting enough, Henry's seen the film, so I would love to have that little bit of a conversation next week if you're all there, and we can bring it into it. So,
and one last point: Arbea was the supply fort at the mouth of the Tyne, at the Tynmouth, for the loading onto barges to go upstream to the forts and further on to Hadrian's Wall, etc.
Oh, right.
Do you know? I love this type. I love this type of discussion when we've had people go into different places, because it's not just me. And when we got people talking about Hadrian's Wall, and Heraclian was Pat did, it's so easy to sort of, when Pat said that, it's so easy to sort of rush Pat along a bit, but obviously, because we can't fit everything in, but it's fascinating to hear stories, which Pat did, fascinating to hear what Bill said, and obviously fascinating to hear everyone's stories. So, okay then, anything you want to say, Pat?
No, very interesting. Thank you.
Right, good. And I've got a note here, something about class fees, which I don't really understand.
What?
Yeah, I've got it written down here. Something, you're out of cycle. Look it up, Anne. Look up your accounts. Right. It says Anne class fees. I don't know what that means, right? But look it up. Work it out.
It's my class fee. It's my class fee.
I don't know. I'm just saying. When
I'm not saying it. It's the bank. I'm not saying it. It's the bank.
I'm just saying what it says here.
It's a standing order.
All right, it's fine. It's done. Right. Any question? Anne, any questions?
Oh, well, yes, fine. Everything's fine. I enjoy listening to different points of view. Everyone's point of view, and
it's lovely to see you, Anne.
And you, Owen, I can't see you, but never mind. There's a festival on Monday in my stake library. So I'm
my stake library.
2 o'clock.
Everything goes on in my stake library. Instead of
hang on, Anne. The library's closed on Monday.
Oh, it's the hall, the town hall.
And what is it again?
It's a festival of history.
In the town hall?
Yeah. The new town hall.
I should know about
that.
I know. You said you'd find out about it. But
it's good. Anyway, it's good. I don't know what's going on anymore.
I don't know if Pat wanted to.
But anyway, thanks for that, Anne. Thanks for that. Work it out. Right, Pat, anything you want to say?
No. Very interesting. Thank you.
Good. What we got to do, we still got to ask Del and Henry, but Bill, I'm going to ask the man, right? Richard, anything you want to say?
Very interesting. I'd say only a little snippet I did see today is that they just found a coin dated 287 AD to the Emperor Carausius, who was known as a bit of a rogue emperor, apparently.
Where did they find that coin? Because I'm into Emperor Carausius, as you know.
Yeah, it's on the new railway line. They're doing between Oxford and Cambridge.
Now, was the coin gold? Was it a gold one?
It looked silver.
Whoa! An Emperor Claudius silver coin, either gold or bronze, but never silver.
Yeah,
Richard, send me the link. Send me the link.
It was in the
Send me the link.
Independent.
And Richard, remember that coin from Carausius that was found in a flower bed at Victoria Park by me?
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for that, Richard.
Yeah,
thank
there's
you
a
for
few
that.
other finds as well. A lot of Bronze Age finds along where they're excavating for this railway line.
Good.
Oh, and Joe went to Severn Valley Railway on Saturday.
Well,
There's a big show on in Bridgnorth.
You should have gone with him, love. You should have gone.
No.
Right. Anyway, thanks for that, Richard and Anne. Get the link over to me, Richard. I'd like to see that. That'll be good. That'll be good. Owen, anything you want to say before we do Henry?
Oh, yes, that was absolutely fascinating. Really enjoyed it, especially the bits about the Roman script and the Aramaic script. Because when I go when I go back to Caerleon, and when next month I go to St. Albans, as I call it, I am really going to scrutinise the monument.
Well, basically, if it's got DM at the front and the first bit of the name, right, that you got it, you've nailed it, and then then obviously look for AN.
No, I'm definitely going to look for other scripts.
Yeah, just enjoy doing it. Take a photograph, send it to me or whatever. Just enjoy.
I think in the past I might have thought it was just decorative stuff.
It's not. It's not.
No.
Enjoy it. Enjoy it.
Carl, I've really enjoyed this evening because I've not had a good time lately, as you know.
I know.
And tonight has really lifted me.
Oh, good.
And actually, Del, if I'm going to say it, I've had a rough couple of days in my head recently, and it's been good for me to do this tonight as well. So that's two of us.
Yeah. Oh, great! Thank you.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Del, it's fine. Somebody phoned me today about something that happened, and that was good. And this tonight is fine. It's fine. It's okay.
Yeah, but things are improving.
Good.
Owen.
Good.
Owen, have a think about if you ever felt up to doing a little talk about your family farm in you know where.
Oh, to the
Pencoed.
I'm not ready for that yet, Dan.
No. All right then. Okay, Owen, that's fine. Okay, Dan.
But when you do get Owen to do it, just let him sit down and talk. That'll be good.
Yeah.
Oh, I tell you what, I will sit and talk.
Yeah.
Good.
And I'll take you.
Good. That's good. I didn't think you could drive, Anna.
Anyway, thanks, Carl. Thanks, everybody.
My pleasure. And one last thing, Henry, anything you want to say, darling, before we go?
I was just thinking about the Romans and obviously disinterest in Cornwall's tin. Of course, in Europe, they would have already passed places with large tin deposits anyway.
Yeah.
So there wasn't much. Why bother when we can get it actually just across the water? Exactly.
And when you think about it, tin's going to be used in mass production of coins on the continent, basically not here. So, and also the other thing as well is, one thing that we do forget is this: that there's a lot of metal stuff still about, right, in circulation. All that can be melted down and it can be reused. So, it's not as if it's all in the ground. This stuff can be recycled and reused. And the Romans did recycle lots of stuff. They recycled glass. They recycled pottery, right? So the Romans were into recycling, so there's no reason why they couldn't just get hold of lots of bronze stuff and recycle it. Why did they need all this tin? So there we go.
That's it. Thank you very much.
Right, I've really enjoyed tonight. I know we've gone a bit too late, Pat, and stuff. We don't usually do this, but guys, if you can all make sure that you get here next week, probably
see you next week,
just after 7, right? And if we can have a full class next week, Goff will tell you about the Odysseus film, and I'm sure we can have a nice little bit of a chat about that. So
I'll try and find that.
I might actually get some images of the Odysseus film in, and Goff can talk about it. So that'd be good. It's a 3-hour film, so that's like 3.5 hours with the adverts. I don't know if I can cope with that, but anyway, guys, I'm going to call it a night. Anyway, really good having you on, Bill, Richard, Pat, Owen, Henry, and Anne Skettledump. It's been an absolute blast.
Right,
and
go feed them sheep.
I will get on with the sheep and the goat. Thank you very much, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good week.
Bill, Richard, Pat, Owen, Henry, and night, folks.
Bye.
Night.
Bye.
Night.
Bye.
I can see Bill squinting there. Night, guys.
Night.
Best not to say anything, Henry. I tell you, if we edited that for the comedic value, I'm sure we'd have at least 30 minutes. I couldn't stop laughing at the beginning. I nearly wet myself. That was bad. It was so all over the shop. It was just, I don't know what to say. And then Bill invited Del to talk. Oh my bloody God.
I think I'll skip the drive up the valleys.
Yeah, I think we'll leave that one.
I think you might have to edit that one out.
Yeah. I think I need to edit the whole thing out, to be honest.
Have a good week.
Yeah. I think I need to do that one. Yeah. All right. Okay. Then. I'll speak to you soon. Take care.
Bye.
Night, Henry. Send me those links. Take care.
Yeah, I've already done that.
Brilliant. I'll look at them. Brilliant. Thanks.
You'll love the Irish Stone Bridge.
Night, guys.
Bye.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Night. Guys, anyone who's joined us tonight on ignored all his emails Black Patches Dog, because there is no record in archaeology, doesn't mean the history is wrong.
You love the Irish Stone Bridge.
Anyway, thank you for the comment about that Black Patches Dog. Hi, and anyone, don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's just see if there is anything else written here. I would like that. So I think Del was responding to I would like thing. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching my channel. You know, that's good. That's there. Okay, I would like that. So there we go. So what am I doing here? Okay. Night, folks. I'm looking at the read on there. 1, 2, 3. Nothing in that chat box there. Del was going, I would like that. A kiss. And he's on about the walk, the Beano trip around Britain if I win the lottery. If I win the lottery, then I'll put a few grand. We'll get a minibus and we'll go around Britain. I'll pay for all the accommodation. It'll be a full bus of people just to see Roman walls for about 5 or 6 days. And that'll be good. Diolch yn fawr I chi. Nos da. And I'll put it in the book. Night, folks. Dun 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 dun. I would like that. Dun. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.